Welcome to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. Chris Young with you today for a series of stories, hopefully new information for many of our viewers, maybe some review for some others. We've got some world news stories and plenty of national stories and Mississippi news, and also in the Jackson and Hinds County. So, we're broadcasting to you from downtown Jackson, Mississippi, 71 degrees, kind of heading for 78, a little overcast today, but no rain in sight, it looks like, for the next 4 or 5 days. Would be beautiful. Might work out for a great Memorial Day weekend. So we kick off on the national stage with some folks that it seemed like we're always keeping an eye on. This Syria's Bashar al-Assad. You know, this man only a few years back was, using chemical weapons against his own people in Syria. And on Friday, he told fellow Arab states that a new world order called for rearranging of international affairs without Western influence. So, it's an interesting thing when you think about the leader of a country that would be willing to use chemical weapons, tens of thousands of people killed in Syria by their own leader upon his orders, and yet he's standing very confident among fellow Arab states, claiming that we need a new world order, and certainly the United States shouldn't be any part of that. He was warmly welcomed, if that's not enough area of concern, warmly welcomed by the host of the event, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, 37 years old. Assad is 57. Salman, 37. Everyone seems to think the evidence seems inescapable that he ordered the killing of the journalist Khashoggi at an embassy in Turkey a few years back. In a landmark meeting with the two were seen embracing before posing for photographs. During the address, Assad presented himself as the elder statesman, lecturing his neighbors about the need to take advantage of global politics. So, somewhat concerning that you have these two people in particular, both have lots and lots of blood on their hands, but yet they're embracing one another, talking about a new world order. At the G7, just a couple of days ago, Moscow and Beijing lashed out against the group, the summit that was held in Hiroshima, where leaders of major democracies pledged measures targeting Russia and spoke in one voice of their growing concerns over China. So when you have this G7, these most powerful nations, even with representatives from China and Russia in attendance, and they're speaking out against them, and they want to hold these bad actors in check. So we'll see how that goes. A lot going on in this world of ours. Lot to keep track of. President Biden was there at the G7 summit and got back. I believe it was yesterday morning or in the middle of the night before. Today marks one day. Can you believe how fast? One full year since the Uvalde Robb Elementary School massacre. 19 students, 2 teachers killed. Just horrific. These were 8, 9, 10-year-old boys and girls. Seeing the photos of them, I was watching a story on it on one of the cable stations early this morning. It just bring tears to my eyes. That was 1 year ago today. They say law enforcement was on the scene 3 minutes after it happened, but they were under orders not to enter for 77 minutes. They did not enter and subdue that shooter. Investigation still going on at the local, state, and federal level about that mass shooting in Uvalde. Certainly, our condolences, our prayers continue to be with the families of those involved. You just wonder if that's something that you just never get beyond something like that. Just horrific. Next story on the national level is, very interesting to me, and really a pulse check of what seems to be going on in this nation with an increasing fervor over time. Amanda Gorman, beautiful, young, African-American poet, Amanda Gorman, was invited to the Biden inauguration and recited her poem, "The Hill We Climb." And next thing you know, she's like an international celebrity. Just a powerful, powerful, fact-based poem about this country and the struggles that are inherent in this country, and the struggles that are inherent much, much more for some than for others in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Well, come to find out that down there in Florida, yesterday, the day before, yesterday, I believe, there was a parent down there that objected, a school board, or spoke at a school board meeting, and they want that poem that she recited at a presidential inauguration, they want that removed from reading by elementary school children in the educational institution in Miami-Dade County. In the complaint, the parent mistakenly listed Oprah Winfrey as the author, confusing Oprah with the 25-year-old Amanda Gorman, and said that the lady, the mom, the parent, white of course, objected to the poem because it was, quote, not educational and have indirectly hate messages. What do you do with stuff like that? But this is what's going on in our country. Anytime people try to tell the truth, especially black people, remember Hannah Nicole Jones, the 1619 Project, remember what they did to her, try to do to her, the banning going on in state legislatures in all the red states. So if you speak up now and try to tell the truth, you get blackballed like this. Your poetry gets taken off the reading list. Your books get banned. You can't talk about the 1619 Project, an academic theory, by the way. Interesting. Along those same lines, too, on the national level, leaders of the NAACP, just several days ago, issued a travel advisory. So the NAACP submitting a travel advisory highlighting Florida's active hostility, the state of Florida, active hostility to minorities. And they say it's only the beginning of a campaign to engage voters in the state and nationally as the state's Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, prepares to launch his presidential run on Wednesday, which apparently he did this morning on a Twitter talk with Elon Musk. So, Derek Johnson, trying to make sure black people understand the things that are going on down in Florida, how openly hostile it is to African Americans, just making people aware of that in the form of a travel advisory. And boy, what a backlash. I read about 60 different comments last night on some social media, Twitter, I guess, maybe Instagram or Twitter, and just so much hateful stuff. It is an actively hostile area to minorities, and yet these people are pushing back like you wouldn't believe, accusing the NAACP of being political. So much so that an active a sitting senator from Florida, this Senator Rick Scott, now senator, that's with a big S in Washington, he issued a mock travel advisory to try to counterbalance the legitimate travel advisory, and he issued it for socialists, warning that Florida is openly hostile to socialists. You can't make this stuff up. A real live senator stooping to that kind of level rather than taking some ownership and trying to do things about what's, this hotbed of white nationalism that's going on in the state of Florida. It's just, to me, it's just kind of beneath the office. He just definitely lets you know what his colors are, that's for sure. A lot of talk about the debt limit. And, now President Biden back from the G7, met with people beforehand. The staffs continued to meet. Now he's met a couple of times since getting back with McCarthy. Just a couple hours ago, I read somewhere that they've hit a fresh impasse with negotiations far apart on key issues, especially the spending cuts. So if they don't raise the debt limit, we worked ourselves into a position where it becomes catastrophic for the country, even the states, state of Mississippi, certainly no exclusion, veterans, first responders, all kinds of problems, Social Security beneficiaries, or I should say recipients, not beneficiaries. So the Republicans demanding spending cuts as time runs short to avert the historic U.S. Debt limit default. So it's so interesting. 3 times under President Trump, the Republicans had no issues with raising the debt limit. Now all of a sudden they're demanding all kinds of spending cuts, at least keep things to last year's spending levels in order for them to go along with the debt increase. So we'll see what, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, says June 1st is the very important date. They really need to have this sewed up by June 1st. So, we're getting awful close to that. On the national, what ballers like myself call the association. The National Basketball Association held a game last night. The Boston Celtics down there in Miami, down 3-0 in Miami, and man, oh man, they just lit it on fire. Beat Miami by 17 points. Miami was ahead by 6 at the half, 6 or 8. And so Miami now leads the series 3-1. And the series heads back to Boston for game 5. So, it's an interesting swing in the momentum. You could say, 3-1, no problem. But now, what happens if Boston wins on Thursday night in Boston? Tomorrow night in Boston? What happens then? Now you're 3-2 and you're going back to Miami. So who's the pressure really on? So it looked like the Heat might be heading for some heat here. And being a lifelong Celtics fan, I just had to share that news with you. Of course, the Lakers in the Western Conference, the Lakers already been eliminated. They were swept by the Denver Nuggets. Lakers swept. Wow. And Denver Nuggets looking strong. So whoever wins this series between Boston and Miami will go on to play the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals, which starts up, I want to say it's planned to start June 1st. So, big news there. So we'll step out now and take our halfway through break, show you a couple of commercials. We'll be right back with you.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippilink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Welcome back to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. Grateful for our producer, our young, robust, competent producer Ariel we have here putting on the show today. And we walk down into Mississippi news and always remind you right out of the gate, today just another day that the Republican legislators, Republican leaders in this red state or reddish, purplish state of Mississippi have elected not to hold any hearings on this minimum $77 million TANF scandal, where these Republican folks turned this federal monies to help the poorest Mississippians, turned it into their own personal sludge fund, and of course none of them, they want to hold no hearings on that. So sad, but we got to tell you about that every single time we come on the air, so that you know that. The next story is a quirky little story. Wish I had more information on it, but authorities removing a body of a person hanging between two billboards in Columbus, Mississippi. Now, I don't know where your mind went, but my mind immediately went to something. But the only thing available, they say the phone started calling 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, police calling the police, and a white sheet, they took the body down. A white sheet was placed over the body when authorities removed it. They say they're not clear if this was a death, if the death was a suicide or an accident. That's what the authorities in Columbus, Mississippi said. They didn't say whether it was a white man or a black man that was hanging between these two billboards. I know where my mind goes. It's always going to go there till things change, you know. But of course they put a white sheet. And suicide, so somebody climb up on the billboards to kill themselves. Well, that would be horrific. Or it was much different than that. But an accident? I don't know how any law enforcement could call something like that an accident. So Columbus, Mississippi, we got to keep our eyes on that. Also now in the Delta, Mississippi Bureau of Investigation looking into a shooting that left a 15-year-old dead in the Mississippi Delta. Cornelius McGee Jr. found shot and killed Monday in Clarksdale, according to the city's police department. What in the world has caused that? and they're reluctant to. They say they're at the stage of the investigation now where it's too early to tell if it was an officer-involved shooting. Well, that kind of tells you it was an officer-involved shooting, right? So if they can't tell you it wasn't, this happened on Monday, 2 days ago, they can't tell you that it wasn't. It seemed to me like that tells you that it is. So once again, now we got to keep our eye on the Sunflower County and the Clarksdale. See what's going on with that. 15 years old. And sadly, it doesn't end there. 11-year-old boy shot in the chest by an Indianola police officer. 11 years old. Community members calling for answers and for the officer's termination. Community members identified the boy as Adarian Murray. He was shot early Saturday morning. Police responding to a domestic call in his home. 11-year-old boy. 11-year-old boy shot in the chest. How do you make sense of this? So they say the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation say that they're investigating the shooting. 2 days later, and the family still not hearing anything from anybody about how it's possible that their son or brother or sister or grandson or nephew had to get shot in the chest behind. They say he got a breathing tube in now. An 11-year-old boy. It's just so sad to think of, laying up in a hospital bed with a breathing tube, 11 years old. Why you have to get shot? More Mississippi news. This guy, Chris McDaniel, very, very hard right. You know this Chris McDaniel, 3-time senator here in the. He's going to run against Delbert Hosemann for lieutenant governor. Chris McDaniel's run for 3 other seats before, always loses, gets a very low percentage of the vote because he's just way over on the fringes, and he's challenging Hosemann to debates. Hosemann not biting the hook. Say the debates have already happened and they're already scheduled, so it doesn't look like he's willing to do any separate debates with Chris McDaniel. Also, Tate Reeves versus the challenger Brandon Presley. Tate Reeves trying to make a case for income tax reduction. Show me a state that's not Florida that phases out their income tax and is thriving, versus Brandon Presley saying, no, we need to cut the grocery tax. Everybody got to eat. That affects everybody. And also cut the car tag taxes. So they did, and there was a poll just last month, the middle of last month, 16 to the 20th, found that 58% of a representative group of the state's registered voters would only vote for a candidate for governor who wished to eliminate the grocery tax. And 7% said they would only vote for a candidate who opposed cutting the tax. So that's a large percent, almost 60%. They want to see that grocery tax go away. They're not nearly as worried about the income tax. Grocery tax affects everybody. Poor people, people on fixed incomes, seniors, veterans, and so that's kind of going to be a dividing line between these two candidates. Tate Reeves vying for re-election, Brandon Presley trying to become the next governor of Mississippi. Okay, the Jackson City Council met yesterday. And Vernon Hartley opposing, from Ward 5 in West Jackson, opposing Jackson Resource Center's plan to use land off Capers Avenue to serve the homeless. Essentially, he's saying, NIMBY, right? NIMBY, not in my backyard. But Councilman Hartley, he already knows there's plenty of homeless people already in West Jackson. So he's doing a little tap dancing here. Virgie Lindsay, Ward 7, she said that a property was turned over in her ward for the homeless, and that homeless facility is doing very, very well, and they never get any complaints. It's situated in the middle of a residential neighborhood and causes no problems, says Virgie Lindsay. So Vernon Hartley, once again, letting us know who he really is. Hinds County grand jury indicts Jordan Cummins for 2 murders adjacent to the Patty's Day parade. We told you all about this at the time. 2 counts of first-degree murder coming out against Cummins for the murders of Joshua Spann and Auden Jubilee Simpkins. So that is moving forward. So that was still in the month of February. That was near the end of February, and less than 2 months later, indicted by the grand jury in Hinds County. Yesterday, City Council approved spending $6,800 each for 25 video cameras. These are like surveillance cameras. Now, we already got some of them, but the experts say that the more of those you have, it really is a deterrent to crime. So these 25 video cameras will be linked to the real-time command center. A company called Active Solutions was the only one that bid on the RFP process. And Captain George Jimerson of Jackson Police Department, he told council yesterday that we still want to speak to the public. We still want to get public input before we decide, strategically exactly where we're going to put those 25 cameras. So hopefully that'll be money very well spent by the city of Jackson. And U.S. District Court Judge Henry Wingate heard 6 hours of argument on Monday before ultimately deciding to extend his restraining order to block the implementation of HB 1020, at least until they have more hearings on it. So that lawsuit was brought by the NAACP within hours of Tate Reeves signing HB 1020 into law. The expansion of the judicial district, unelected judges, expanding the Capitol Police, usurping the authority of Hinds County residents and Hinds County voters, creating a city within a city, run by white people, in this, because they don't like the idea that Jackson is run by black people. These certain people, they just cannot abide by black leadership. And so they do anything in their power, including violate the Constitution, in order to change all that. Thank you, Judge Henry Wingate. Last story on the local level, very interesting story. They always say we get help from the outside. We don't get help from the inside here in Jackson. But people know what's going on here. Platforms like this, news platforms, the Mississippi Link, Mississippi Today. We have brought lots of reporters and journalists, multimedia journalists, wonderful people we have here. And the story gets out and people find out about what's going on in Jackson. Well, that Christmas tree list that they call it, where everybody gets their earmarks in on that last bill of the legislative session. Once again, for 2 years in a row, millions of dollars of legislative earmarks for the city of Jackson were vetoed by the governor. And so what we're talking about here is allocations of $1 million for improving parking at Jackson Convention Center. $6 billion surplus can't give Jackson $1 million to improve parking at the Jackson Convention Complex, which brings in oodles of money. $2 million to renovate the Russell C. Davis Planetarium, $13.2 million for LaFleur's Bluff Golf Course, also would be a revenue generator. So Mayor Lumumba says, you know, we got to fight this. We got to sue the state. And lo and behold, an Oakland, California-based public rights project, this is a nonprofit, and on Tuesday, the city council approved entering into an agreement with them. They will pay the legal expenses if we sue the state over the sliding of funding to Jackson. Is that amazing or what? Oakland, California, going to step up and fight for us. And Angelique Lee says the group will be looking at some underfunding issues impacting Jackson, including these decision about these line item votings. And it basically, you know, lots of people ask for these earmarks, lots of them get them granted, but Jackson seemed to have a habit of not getting them granted. So the work is being done free of charge. The agreement will be in place from yesterday until any lawsuits related to the 2023 legislative session are resolved. What a tremendous commitment, you know, that they're making. And the council voted on that yesterday, 5-1. Griselle, Hartley, Banks, Lindsay, and Lee voted in favor. Ashby Foote, the council president, the Republican, voted against the proposal, saying the city has attorneys already in-house, adding the city should focus more on public safety and making infrastructure improvements. And even the governor, what he has to say, even in times of plenty, I believe we charged with the critical responsibility of properly stewarding taxpayer dollars. So he said he continued to be a watchdog. You just got to laugh. He will continue to be a watchdog on behalf of the taxpayers when it comes to their money. Except for that $77 million stolen from the poor people. He wasn't a watchdog on that now, was he? So that's our governor, Tate Reeves. And we'll see. Who knows? If people want to turn out and vote, it's very possible we could be looking at Tate Reeves in the rearview mirror. Wouldn't that be something? So thank you so much for tuning in to We Believe Digital Newsbreak today. We hope you have a good day out there, and be sure to take good care of yourself and those around you. And we'll see you back Friday at noon.